winners. What is needed?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because every YouTuber for the past decade has been talking about how China is going to collapse tomorrow. China is going to collapse any day now. Now, writing videos like that might get you the easiest 1 to 2 million views of your life because there's a lot of people that want to hear that. Unfortunately for those people, that's not the reality. It doesn't correspond to what's actually happening. Charlana Zard, thank you for the raid. Hope you had a good stream. For all the raiders, you came in just in time for me to talk about the American collapse and the Chinese century of prosperity. China is on pace to become the most powerful country on others in like 50 years. We may be cooked. First of all, I don't think it's 50 years. And secondly, I don't know how we get cooked in that process. But Donald Trump is accelerating that, is what I mean. Donald Trump is accelerating Chinese prosperity. And this is one of these initiatives.
Needed are not more tariffs, a dialogue. We urge the U.S. to correct its action and stop weaponizing trade issues.
China is also hitting back by filing a lawsuit against the U.S. at the World Trade Organization, sanctioning 2 U.S. firms, tightening control over the export of rare earth minerals to the U.S., and launching an antitrust investigation into tech giant Google. China's first move in Donald Trump's continuing trade war against it, affecting less than 10% of its annual U.S. imports. But it does carry a warning for Washington. Beijing doesn't want an extended trade war, but it is ready for one and can now cause more damage to the U.S. economy than it did during Trump's first term.
China really learned the lesson from the first Trump administration. It's not wise, to immediately take a dramatic measure against Trump, because at the end of the day, we know for sure Trump is a very transactional.
Trump wants to decrease Washington's trade deficit with China, which hit a record $295 billion last year. He says the added tariffs are also punishment for not doing enough to stem the tide of the illegal drug fentanyl to the U.S., something Chinese officials deny.
These latest announcements are a way of President Trump showing that he is very serious about using the tariff instrument as a policy tool for achieving both economic and non-economic objectives.
Washington also plans to...
No privacy, no freedom of speech, hyperrealism, 6 days, 10 hours per day, low pay. Is this what you want? I've been spit on by Chinese people due to being Korean. Like, please stop pretending like there's some kind of enlightened civilization. Dude, that's so funny, being a Korean dude and thinking that, like, Americans, depending on where you go, won't spit on you or do worse. Okay, so exactly like America? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, go to the West Bank, see what they do to you there. I'm literally the descendant of a Korean war veteran. Which side? Cool. I'm a Korean veteran too. I can give you a link of my grandfather. It's very funny to use racism as a reason to hate China in defense of the United States of America. This incredible stuff. We just elected Trump. Also, how do you like your current Korean government, or any number of different formations that the Korean government has taken hold in the Republic of Korea under the watchful gaze of the American State Department? What do you mean? I feel like we've done awful things to Korea in general. Korea is still suffering from the impact of our actions. So is China and Japan. I feel like Japan is in a league of its own if we're going to be talking about what it's done. Let me think. You got China, Japan, and the United States of America in terms of its impact in Korea. I wonder which of these 3 countries has devastated Korea more. I wonder who takes 3rd place in that. Or it shouldn't even be mentioned. What the fuck? Anyway, Hassan is still mad for criticizing the Democratic Party on its stance on Israel, and now seeing what Trump is doing makes it even worse. What? Yeah, you're right. Because my criticisms of the Democratic Party were just around the issue of allowing Israel to continue doing genocide and giving them the weapons to do so. Thank you for truly understanding my political commentary on this. Also, thank you for acting like you give a shit about Gaza. Why you gotta ride so hard for China? Chatter, I'm writing for history. What are you talking about? In terms of China, Japan, and the United States of America, what nation has had infinitely worse impact on Korea? If you think China is part of it, then your brain is broken, like this chatter. China has Han chauvinism built in their culture. They didn't think Goryeo is Korean, but Chinese history. Every country in East Asia is racist, misogynist. China is not a utopia. I never said it was. There are millions of Chinese people that suffer from classism. I never said they don't. They will never have justice for Tiananmen Square or their people robbed. This is not whataboutism. Conservatives, liberals too, dictatorships. I'm no American simp. I'm no China simp. So has China and Japan. China is the reason North Korea exists. You're right. The entirety of Korea should have been an American military installation as a bulwark against Chinese and Soviet communism instead of, everything beneath the 30th parallel. Dude, like, I'm sorry, brother, but like the American government did horrifying shit. The Korean dictatorship did horrifying shit to the South Koreans. This is before we think about what would amount to genocide in North Korea. The very fact that there is a North and South Korea is already ridiculous. If it wasn't America doing it, we would be writing about it in history books as a genocide. But because it was America doing it, it's not considered as such. I'll never forget the Turkish soldiers for slowing down the Chinese advance to Chosin by 3 days and saving the 8th U.S. Army from collapse. You should have surrendered your Asian brethren on day one. Listen, my people's involvement in this was wrong. A stain, okay? Trust me. Because we were liberators, Lamau, you can't be saying that. Oh, you're joking. Okay, never mind. What? You really are not properly informed, Hassan. I do not fault you. If you want to know what is really going on in North Korea, please check my PFP. This queen is fucking idiot. This queen is a giant amongst historians telling the truth about North Korean horror. It's true. How the fuck did we get here? I was talking about America basically destroying itself and creating opportunity for China. Donald Trump destroying America's leadership position around the globe. Anti-Turkmenism is a real thing, dude. Don't sweep it under the rug. It's been boiling over for a while. Have you noticed the rise of anti-Turkmenism in the U.S. recently? What? Dude, Americans don't know what a fucking Turkic person is to be adequately and sufficiently racist towards them. What are you saying? What are you, like a fucking unironic panturinist or something? What is happening? Americans think I'm Arab, dude. And I ride a camel to work when I'm back in Turkey. They don't know. Americans are too stupid to understand the distinct ethnicities to be sufficiently and adequately racist against them. They think, bro, Americans think Indians are Muslim. And some are, but they're not making that distinction. Okay?
To scrap duty exemptions for cheap Chinese goods, the so-called de minimis rule, which would raise prices for e-commerce stores, Temu and Shine. An extra 25% US tariff on steel and aluminium would affect less than 1% of China's global exports of commodities. For now, Xi Jinping is watching closely for Trump's next move and is ready to inflict more pain on the US and its companies in response. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Make sure to subscribe.
Adding a 50% tariff won't impact us much.
Chinese toy trader Zheng Hao says new tariffs from US President Donald Trump don't bother him.
First of all, our product is a high profit product. For example, if I sell it here for 5 yuan, the wholesalers may give consumers a price of 15 or 20 yuan, because this is the standard pricing in the US. Even if a tariff adds 2.5 yuan to a 5 yuan toy, the impact on the end consumer isn't too significant.
Zheng's Jinqi Toys is in a massive market complex in the eastern city of Yiwu. Yiwu is the world's largest hub for selling small products wholesale. Everything from costume jewelry to Christmas decorations are sold here. Zheng says the US accounts for about 80% of his exports. Still, he's not fazed by Trump's tariffs and other moves against China.
United States unpredictability, well, we're okay with it. It's whatever. We have no choice.
Trump promised 60% tariffs on Chinese goods during his campaign, but he revised that down to 10% after taking office. He also plans to cancel duty-free treatment of low-cost packages from China under the so-called de minimis rule. That loophole lets parcels worth less than $800 enter the US tax-free.
Whatever they say, we just follow. If they cancel small parcel shipments, then our customers will switch to shipping by containers, right?
Chong Hao-dong is chairman of BO6 Group, which sells a range of items from clothes to toiletries. He told Reuters that they had already made preparations to soften the blow.
Before Trump took office, we predicted he would be elected. So what should we do after Trump comes to power? We gathered information from various reports as well as on platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Based on that, we made strategic adjustments for the company in advance. It's not about reacting immediately when a policy is announced. By then, it would be too late to adapt.
Trump's moves have reignited fears of a full-blown trade war escalating between the world's two largest economies. China is preparing its own counter-tariffs of up to 15% on some US goods. Abby Jin buys products in Yiwu on behalf of her international customers in markets including the United States.
It seems like the Chinese were not too fond of Kamala's campaign. It seems like they were tapped into the Hasanawi broadcast and saw many of the campaign's failures. He's like, yeah, they were doing Brad Summer. Big mistake. As soon as we saw Brad Summer, we knew Trump was most likely going to be president. They hate Alan Lichtman in China. Alan, they're calling you bitch made at Yiwu International Trade Market District, dog. Alan Lichtman, they're calling you a dummy over there, dog. They 3D printed your keys. They've been turning your keys left and right out there at the Yiwu International Trade Market District. They got 14 of them. They printed them out. They're selling the keys, Alan. I don't know, man. I wouldn't let them talk to me like that, but that's just me, bro. They can talk however they want, man. What are you going to do?
Told Reuters that vendors in the city were not short of orders.
We can respond by slightly reducing our profit margins or adjusting costs. In the end, the additional costs will be passed on to the end consumers in this country, meaning they will ultimately bear the consequences of their own economic policies. For the US, whether they can find a suitable country to replace us as a trade partner is a question they need to consider themselves.
I'll be back.
Another day, another set of tariffs. This time around, it's steel and aluminum as they call it, in America. Let me just give you the big picture here, starting with aluminium. This is showing you just how much each country around the world produces. It goes all the way back to 1900. That's the US, okay? So it used to be one of the world's biggest producers. Other countries have since caught up and actually overtaken it. So Canada, that's in front. Partly down to the fact that it takes a lot of power to make aluminium. You're kind of refining it with electricity. It's kind of electrolysis, and there's a lot of hydro.
It is pretty wild that you're looking at like a bunch of random Chinese commerce people that just are tasked with import, export, mostly export, and they have a better understanding of like the tariff war than American business owners that are like, nah, you don't understand, brother. When the tariffs come in, prices are going to go down, actually, somehow, magically. And then you have to have like a real import-export guy come in and be like, you don't understand, okay? This is simply an entry fee. And in order to maintain profit margins, the entry fee must be carried over to the consumer. This is why products are going to get more expensive. And it's like, nah, you shut up. Shut up. Everything's going to be way cheaper. My president said things are going to get better for me. So I don't believe you. You're woke, gay, and libtarded. These guys are like, yeah, we are going, our profit margins are already fairly high. So, we can eat away at the profit margin a little bit without really making the actual people that purchase it carry too much of a cost.
In Canada, so that's pretty clean aluminium. But the big picture here, you need to zoom out. The big picture is something else. Have a look at this. The big picture is China. Okay, so Chinese production has gone through the roof, and China has been pumping out loads of aluminium around the world. And that's like a part of the picture here. And when you look at just to what extent the US is dependent on other countries around the world, the higher this line is, the more dependent America is on imports. That is now well above, or because it's been above 50%, it's kind of nearly 50% at the moment. It's around that point, which down from kind of really low levels previously. So American independence in producing aluminium is no longer the case. However, worth just saying, I showed you that China chart a moment ago. You might have thought, is that all China? Well, no. This is showing you where aluminium comes to the US.
Oh, good thing we're Good thing we're tariffing Canada too. Or saying we're going to do that. Show this to Trump. He loves grabs. No, he's going to see the Chinese aluminium production and lose his mind. See, now I'm saying aluminium.
And China is actually only a small part of it. By far and away, the biggest part, the biggest importer into the US, it's Canada. To the extent that actually when people talk about the North American market, they usually include Canada in it. But obviously, if Canada's going to...
Oh, it's for all countries, no exceptions? Oh, my bad. Steel and aluminum tariffs.
be hit by that, that's going to be a really big deal indeed. What kind of things is aluminium used for? Well, it goes into a lot of things. It goes into transportation, so you're talking about planes, so it's light. It's a light, strong metal. Into planes, into trains, into automobiles, particularly electric vehicles, but other things as well, containers, cans, obviously, for soft drinks. And the issue here is, if you're pushing up the cost of aluminium that you're importing in, it's very hard to produce, to get those smelters going overnight, then the cost of all of this stuff, all of those components into it, goes up. And that's the issue. Potential big inflation in the US as a result of this, and all of those goods go up.
No, this cucklord doesn't understand. Our great king is going to save it. No, prices are going to go down, you fool. Be back. Why? Because my president said so. My president said so. No, he's going to do it. He's going to fix it. Why is this guy saying that everything that touches aluminum is going to increase in production costs? It's the opposite. Mexico will pay for it, I think.
Up as well. Worth saying, with steel, so I showed you that chart a moment ago looking at aluminium production. Same thing here, okay, for steel. I show you, there's the UK as well as the US. The picture is basically the same. China has gone through the roof recently. Massive increase in Chinese production. And again, have a look at this chart. This is showing you that dependence. And here it's a subtly different story, okay? So whereas the US has become much more dependent on imports when it comes to aluminium, with steel, much less so, actually. That's much lower when it comes to import dependence. So in other words, the US able to deal with higher costs of steel, imported steel, slightly more than when it comes to aluminium. There's an interesting difference here. But there is a big story here. And the big story is, I've shown you those charts of Chinese production going through the roof. As a result of that, everyone is finding it hard to compete. And when you look at just how much it costs to make steel, aluminium in China, it's relatively low, partly because energy costs are low, partly because there are big subsidies for producing things like aluminium. The higher these bars are, the more state aid there is. That's subsidies. And aluminium's there, steel is there as well as all sorts of other things like semiconductors, solar panels, cement production as well. And as a result, it's really hard to compete. Some people call this overcapacity, and a really good kind of illustration of this actually comes back to electric cars. This is showing you how much domestic sales for electric cars are in China. Actually, it's all domestic sales of all cars. And this is showing you how much domestic production is, okay? So production within China is projected to go higher and higher and higher. And you can see that when you're producing more cars than you're actually able to consume, then you're pumping them out around the world. And that's the concern. That's happening not just with electric vehicles, but with everything else as well. And that's part of the story behind these subsidies, one presumes. But there's a big impact here as well. Have a look at this. This shows you who the UK still exports steel to. We don't make that much steel. We really don't, all that much. But we do export quite a lot to the US of that smaller amount of steel, kind of high production, high quality pieces of steel. That is going to be impacted, obviously, if there aren't going to be restrictions to these tariffs. But we'll have to see. We just don't know, and we're taking it.
What does the UK export? Like, I forgot that this was a British broadcaster. Like, I forgot that this was a British broadcaster until he started talking about UK exports. I'm like, why is he talking about something so utterly irrelevant in the grand scheme of things? It's just services, like financial, right? Charlie XCX. Yeah, no, we're not talking about actors.
With all of these policies, basically one day at a time.
Let's listen to what the Rubes are hearing about this cutting of the funding. And let's go to the chief Rube spokesperson, Joe Rogan, of the Joe Rogan Experience. If you are Joe Rogan, how how do you opine on something that you have clearly done nothing other than look at one person's Twitter with a guest when you want the sheen of some type of he's not just sitting there talking to a comedian about it who's going to be like, dude, I don't know anything about that stuff. He needs to talk to somebody who pretends to be an academic, but also knows nothing and is a little bit crazy and only good at basically making it seem like they know what's going on and that are measured about it. So of course, you invite on Brett Weinstein. And this is the conversation they have about USAID spending. Now, let me be clear. The main problem with what's going on with Musk's assault on the USAID is that he is not authorized to do any of this. But if Congress decides they don't want to fund these programs, they should have hearings and they should say, we don't want to fund these programs.
I'll be back. And expose the deep state stuff that you say is there.
Without a doubt. But also understand why they started with USAID. It's because people who don't know anything about how our government spends or what our government does, largely, no, there's some people who have anti-imperialist arguments against the USAID, which I think in certain circumstances are very valid. People don't want the soft projection of our power. They don't want us to project any power.
I don't think any of those people would immediately pull medications from people who were served by USAID. They wouldn't.
Exactly. And but let's be clear, it's also a much better way of projecting power than, say, dropping bombs. Foreign assistance outside of what we've seen in terms of the recent wars is such a minuscule part of our budget. But it's and you could ask 90% of people how much of our budget goes to foreign aid, and they'll give you some wild number: 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever it is. It's like 0.01% of the budget, maybe 1% of the budget. But they feast on it. And so you go for the low-hanging fruit so that you can develop the sort of muscle memory that, yeah, we can go in and just cut this stuff without congressional approval whatsoever. And here is Joe Rogan carrying their water. All of these tech bro brothers hang out in the green room at the Mothership, his comedy space in Austin. So he's just regurgitating whatever they want him to.
I'll be back.
This USAID thing that's going on, Mike Benz has been on that like a pit bull, and I've been following him on X, and he's going to come back on here and kind of explain everything. But he explained it the last time he was here, and I don't think I really grasped it until Elon's 6 wizards. They brought in some young wizards to go in there and go over the books, and they're just finding crazy shit. It's great. And so I was listening to a left-wing podcast today. I like to mix it up. I listen to all kinds of different stuff. And it was like I was listening to a different world. Like, they weren't even talking about all of this corruption and all this obvious buying of influence. Instead, they were talking about aid overseas and how people are going to starve. And
it's mind-boggling, and there's also...
Pause it for 1 second. I should just tell you that Mike Benz, former State Department guy who worked for Trump's first term, he worked on cybersecurity and internet policy.
Right where we want.
And then he was all about the censorship industrial complex.
What is corruption? I would like Rogan to be even less zoom out, but is it a billionaire ransacking our federal government for his own ends? Is that it? Does that constitute corruption?
He supposedly criticizes USAID as going beyond humanitarian aid, influencing foreign governments, and then online discourse, which I'm sure there is some of that as well. Sure, there's some of that. It would be a great thing for Congress to say, we don't want to do that anymore. But
Trump was saying, hey, Venezuela, let this in. Last time he was president, that was USA.
We could have it. They should have a debate as on the floor of Congress in the next budget. They can decide. Here we don't want to fund this. Let's have an investigation into where USAID is going. But these are funds already approved that are supposed to be going to these agencies.
I should also tell you that NBC News did an investigation which linked him to the pseudonym Frame Game, where he allegedly promoted white identitarian views and conspiracy theories, including the Great Replacement Theory.
That's why these guys are hired.
Interesting. Go ahead.
It's mind-boggling, and there's also, I have to say, I'm upset at the general pattern of a failure to recognize how right those of us who hypothesize.
No, pause it for a second. No, okay. No, listen. So here's Brett Weinstein. No idea. He hasn't read one article on this. And a friend of mine says, like, when I don't know anything about politics, my go-to answer is like, can you believe it? And it always gets, and so that's what he's doing. It's like, it's mind-boggling.
But he's a little bit more different, because can we skip to the part where I get credit for all
and then he goes, but in general, not specifically with this, but don't you think I deserve more credit for saying something's weird here? Okay, go ahead.
To recognize how right those of us who hypothesized that there was a racket that had overtaken our entire governance structure, we turn out to be absolutely right about this.
Pause it. We're talking about USAID, which I don't know what tiny percentage of our budget is, but that's the racket across the entire government.
1%, I think?
Incidentally, the military budget is about 1/3 of the budget, like 35%. Go ahead.
Structure. We turn out to be absolutely right about this, and no one's going to mention it. That's mind-blowing.
It's very strange that the media is ignoring it, especially the left-wing media. It's just too big of a win for the right, and so they're just ignoring it. And then they're just highlighting the good things that USA did, which I'm sure it probably did. Probably had to do some good things to, like, at least justify its existence.
As a cover story, I'm not even sure. Maybe it doesn't change anything. Obviously,
just say that the freeze in USAID has now been the assessment is that like 300 children in Africa have already gotten HIV. Just off the top of my head, like of things. Now, there are definitely people out there, people who probably promote white identitarian views and conspiracy theories, including the Great Replacement Theory, say, well, what responsibility do we have for African kids getting HIV? I mean, it's debatable. It's debatable. We have the most resources. We might want to prevent disease in other countries, but continue here.
I mean, chattel slavery and colonialism is justification enough for giving them.
That's not why we're doing it, though. We're doing it because, like Marco Rubio said 5 years ago, it's hard to get people to hate you when you fed them.
Exactly.
And China is all over the continent of Africa right now, building roads and infrastructure. So now the United States, the dwindling soft power that we have, now this is like basically going out the window.
Sure. Maybe it doesn't change anything. Obviously, this was a mechanism used to funnel money to all sorts of things.
Are you ready for some of these nefarious
we didn't
things?
Vote on that don't make sense in light of our Constitution.
Oh, you did vote on.
And
pause it. The number of things that we get to vote on in terms of the way that our government expends them, that we directly get to vote on, is zero.
Hostiles reclaimed the lead.
You want to let me vote on what we're doing with the defense budget?
We're losing Charlie.
We're not going to talk about that. What about tax cuts for wealthy people? What about this whole thing where, like, mortgage payments, you get to deduct those? What? What if I'm renting? No, we don't get to vote on that. But now it's like, where's the vote on providing inoculations to the kids in the third world countries? Where's the vote on that?
Taking B.
Go ahead.
Money to all sorts of things that we didn't vote on, that don't make sense in light of our constitutional structure. And I obviously have concerns like everybody else about where this train takes us, but seeing that structure broken up it's a huge relief.
They gave $27 million to the George Soros Prosecutor Fund. So our own...
Pause it for a second. Hold on for a second. Wait. That seems weird. $27 million to the George Soros Prosecutor Fund? That's a weird name of a fund. George Soros Prosecutor Fund? Let me tell you about the $27 million that went to the George Soros Prosecutor Fund. There is no George Soros Prosecutor Fund. You keep going on, and then we'll like Google this up. I spent 20 minutes.
Do you know what it is referring to?
I have an idea. Go ahead.
Taking Alpha.
Is funding this left-wing lunatic who is hiring the most insane prosecutors who are letting people out of jail who commit violent crimes.
And that's exactly how this racket worked, is that the ability to tax the American public and then effectively...
For those of you who are in fourth grade watching the show, George Soros doesn't hire prosecutors, because prosecutors are hired by the government or they're elected. George Soros doesn't do this. It's possible that some prosecutors running for office get support from some organizations that support that George Soros gives money to, but there is no George Soros Prosecutor Fund. Let's go. I dug into this, right? Pop this up. This is the only thing I can find, was that there was a George Soros funds through his scroll down a little bit. It's Open Society Foundations gave, I guess, U.S. aid gave like $270 million to this East-West Management Institute or something to that effect, the programs they were involved in. You scroll down here, and you see all the different other things, but this is considered, because if you Google George Soros gave USAID gave $270 million to George Soros. This is what you get, essentially. The Department of State, the USAID funds it, World Bank, World Resources. This is all like about putting investment into companies, into countries, no doubt. There are going to be like private entities that are going to come in after this stuff and try and build in corporations. But this is not George Soros Prosecutor Fund for the USAID. He's just making this up whole cloth.
Have you heard of the Federalist Society?
I mean, it's just absurd. It's just absurd. And how many millions of people watch this stuff?
Oh my gosh. I mean, enough for him to get more hundreds of millions of dollars from Spotify while he pretends to be the everyman. He's even worse than like corporate media because he acts like he is a truth teller. And the thing about USA, which is just fascinating, like what they're trying to do here, they're trying to kill soft power by the United States. When there's no soft power, what's left?
Well, I got news for you. They're just going to come in and they're going to do the exact same damn thing.
No, but my point though is that the Trump was running, and there were some people that believed that he was the anti-war guy in comparison to Kamala Harris, and now Biden and Harris made that extremely difficult by Biden supporting a genocide. But this is like there's no anti-war Republicans. They're isolationists, and who's always going to win the day are the military contractors and the defense industry. So there may be like a Rand Paul or a Mike Lee that thinks like, yeah, we should kill soft power. I don't care about kids in Africa getting AIDS. Let's cut it all, cut it all, cut it all, cut it all. I guarantee you the military industrial complex, the hard power, the contracts that are going to go to Elon Musk that he's developing jets with Boeing, that's going to go up. So it just makes it so that the United States is just a brute military power, which we've already been on the road toward.
None of this is going away. This is all just a fabric.
I'm just trying to make a point about the lack of sincerity of the anti-war right and how this is the project. It's actually going to funnel more money into the military-industrial complex.
Keep going here. This is what he lists.
A lot of
This is what he goes on to list.
That the ability to tax the American public and then effectively get us to pay for being propagandized, for being surveilled, that's the game. And I don't know what era we currently live in. Obviously, there's a lot that's confusing about what the Trump administration is up to, but I don't think any reasonable person could be unhappy that we are exiting that era.
I'm going to read off some of the things that this guy Kanakota the Great on Twitter listed.
Oh,
this is off the Jesse Waters show. USAID $20 million for Iraqi Sesame Street, $2 million for
and I'm just going to take all these at face value for the sake of argument. People may not remember, but the term shock and awe that's going around now is about how we bombed Baghdad and flattened it.
Taking Bravo underway.
We killed,
We've lost Charlie.
whether you use Defense Department estimates or sort of like partisan estimates, anywhere from several 100,000 innocent Iraqis to 1 million. The idea that we would reinvest to try and sort of like build some semblance of civil society there is seems pretty expected. But go ahead, because there's more of this that he has a problem
Can I just keep you into the dollar amounts we're talking about? $27 million is less than Tyler Hero makes playing for the Miami Heat.
Oh, $20 million is, let's see, he's got a $250 million contract. You're talking about maybe a quarter, annually. Maybe even like 2 months is what this guy makes on this show. But go ahead.
Rock and pottery classes, $11 million to tell Vietnam to stop burning trash, $27 million.
It might be pretty valuable for Vietnam to stop burning trash. We got a thing called global warming. But go ahead. And incidentally, we also had a little history in Vietnam, too.
The Phoenix program.
Go ahead.
Just to give gift bags to illegals. $27 million.
Pause it.
300.
The whole gift bag to illegals. Did I put the links in there to that too? No, wait, I didn't. The gift bag to illegals. Oh yeah, here it is. This is reintegration stuff that we are doing, that USAID does. It's not just gift bags. It's stuff for kids to reintegrate as we deport them to these countries and expend money to get these countries to not send back more immigrants to us. It is literally doing the thing that they want to be done, but they want it to be done completely for free. That's in the, this is, incidentally, go to this. Go to that link that I put in there.
Controlling Bravo.
In Slack, with the picture of the bag there. This is from 2017. These things took place through the Trump administration, I will have you know. You don't see it in Slack? It's 9:30 a.m. There's a picture of it. All right, forget it now. Let's just keep going. But the Department of Homeland Security returned 75,000 migrants to El Salvador. And that from 2014, scroll down here. This is where he's getting this $27 million from. Fiscal year 2017, the Department of Homeland returned 75,000 migrants to El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras. We examined U.S. efforts to help migrants reintegrate into their home countries by helping them reestablish psychological, social, and economic ties. In other words, so that they don't get back on the road and come back up. Since 2014, so in the course of this thing was released in 2018. So over the course of 4 years, USAID provided $27 million to assist returnees, providing food, transportation, school supplies, and help finding work. It has not yet assessed the effectiveness of this efforts, but has plans to do so. So we don't know, and I haven't followed up, whether these programs work in terms of helping people stay in their country. It's not gift bags. It is supposedly carrying out the plans of what these people want, which is less migrants in this country, which is, frankly, we should be spending a lot more than $27 million. But go ahead.
Bags to illegals. $27 million. $330 million to help Afghanis grow crops. Crops. I wonder what those crops are. What's the biggest crop, Brett?
It's going to be the poppy seeds for bagels.
Yeah, pause it. Now, these guys are real brainiacs.
Look at that, guys.
This program is literally to get, let's go to, he's finding all this stuff from a White House report, right? USAID, waste and abuse runs deep. Scroll down. Keep going to the Afghani thing. Keep going. Okay, hundreds of $1 millions. Here we go. To fund irrigation canals, farming equipment, and even fertilizer used to support the unprecedented poppy cultivation and heroin production in Afghanistan. Click on that. That goes to a Breitbart article. U.S. taxpayers helping to fund fertilize opium. Keep scrolling down. Go back up. This is in 2018. This is money that the Trump administration, now scroll down and you will find that they link to this program is, where is that? Oh, where this program was originally SIGAR, right, yes. Now the report, click on the report. The report doesn't exist anymore, so we went and used the Internet Archive to find this report. And here it is, counter narcotics. This was all about basically trying to encourage Afghanis to grow other crops. And it failed miserably because we destroyed their country. And you'll remember that Donald Trump then ended up making a deal with the Taliban. So this is from 8 years ago.
And they know, and that's why it frustrates me, all of this. Like, actually, it's a score on the deep state. Trump and all these guys, I mean, Brett Weinstein's pretty stupid, and so is Joe, but the aid that the, frankly, bipartisan members of Congress were saying, hey, Maduro, let this aid in. That was U.S. aid that was like $30+ million. And it was for cynical purposes, frankly. But the idea that we should just hack all of it, that is sustaining life across multiple continents, is absolutely
What it does
absurd.
is it shows that this is a lie. Yeah. They don't care about U.S. aid. They care about the destruction of the administrative state, and this was their low-hanging fruit. Just go a little bit more. And then he's just going to list other stuff for Afghanistan, where, frankly, we destroyed the country. Yeah. And he's old enough to remember that when we went in there and invaded it, we said, we're not going to leave it like the Russians did. We're going to rebuild this country.
Wait till they hear about the Marshall Plan.
$200 million on an unused Afghani dam, $250 million on an unused Afghani road. This is wild.
Oh, so wild.
I mean, some of this stuff.
Just have to take it out. Like, the wild stuff should be the political influence stuff, but we're not hearing any of that because, like Sam said, they are going to continue that. Just
of course they are. Of course they are.
Wild. I mean, some of this stuff is really, really crazy.
Tell me one.
Well, yes, and, USAID is, of course, riddled through whatever international madness it is that caused us to open our southern border and facilitate an invasion through the Darien Gap. So, seeing
pause it.
That's
if you understand what he was referring there, I'll give you a trophy. But USAID did not promote an invasion of our borders. Are you kidding me?
You just don't have
They literally just had 2 minutes earlier, he said, I can't believe they're paying $30 million over the course of 4 years for immigrants to reintegrate into their own societies.
Sam, they're giving money to Soros. Soros is funding people coming over the border. I don't know what's so difficult for you to understand. That's right. That's where that conspiracy.
Trying to get them all in the country.
It's not just the actual thing of Guaido. It's not just supporting Guaido. Maybe we could draw like a more direct line. These guys exist to blur this issue.
100%.
I mean, and this is a prime example of what we were saying earlier. The Great Replacement theory is just mainstream Republican discourse now. After Trump kind of introduced the topic into more of the mainstream in 2016. Now it's like Brett Weinstein's just casually saying that right now.
Just give it another couple of minutes here, another minute or two. I know we're running late.
Through the Darien Gap. So, seeing that structure laid bare is it almost feels like it can't be real.
It's like
It's close to the surface, and yet here we are.
They were spending, is this number correct? I think the number that I read was $600 million every 2 months to ship in illegals.
Sounds right. I don't know the number.
That sounds right. I don't know the number. Does that sound right to you?
Well, you have.
So the U.S. government was spending $600 million every 2 years, was it, to ship in illegals? It does sound odd. It's strange, isn't it, that we would be doing that? Maybe someone should Google it.
Stun incoming.
I didn't get this far into the video. Let's see. $600 million
just to ship in illegals?
To ship in illegals.
Sending recruiters down there. Say, hey, Trinidad, you wanna get out of that prison and come to America? We got some money for you.
Let's see. Oh, here it is. This is a fact check from MSN News. I don't know what this is. The Western Journal. FEMA. Americans were angered by the announcement of Homeland Security Mayorkas on Wednesday that FEMA does not have the funds to make it through, particularly in light of the $600 million it spent in migrant services this past year. So that maybe somehow this has got confluted. FEMA apparently has been doing this, not U.S. aid.
And it's not shipping them here, it's dealing with refugees and migrants that come to our shores, in part because, like, look at Venezuela. We caused that displacement. We did it. Look at the Center for Economic and Policy Research. Our sanctions of their oil industry caused not only the migrants to flee, but Trinidad to spread its borders, it spread internationally.
I'm seeing an Instagram. Joe Rogan exposes $600 million every 2 months to ship in illegals. That's what I'm finding. And people are like, it doesn't quite sound right. There is no...
You knew he was lying the way he phrased it. He's like, I got this number right. Huh, Jamie?
What does that even mean? Why would USAID do that?
To replace Republican voters, Sam.
600 DHS announcing the distribution of more than 77 million, and I don't get any of it. It's amazing.
They think that we should the only money we should be spending on the border is on bullets to shoot people that come close to it.
All right, I know. Look at the time. Amazing. Jonathan Armstead, Joe's knocks against an Iraqi Sesame Street is nonsense. For right or wrong, America has always used our TV shows and film to spread our cultural ideas. In the early 60s, the State Department arranged for an interracial convict movie, The Defiant Ones, to be screened at a Moscow film festival with Sidney Poitier in attendance, because it would tell the international community in USSR that America was doing better on race relations than their propaganda suggested. I mean, yes, this is all just, it's amazing how much just absolute BS is coming out. And the Rogan part of it is just like one tiny element of it, but it is exactly why they went after USAID first. Because it was sort of like the easiest thing that they could sort of both demonize, make it sound reasonable. It doesn't impact Americans directly. And, you know, I think there's an argument as to how you message pushing back on this if you're the Democrats.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm kind of sold on it though. I mean, we want America to be safe, and America is not made safer by bombing people overseas. And I mean, it's hard for the Democrats to make that case with Biden, but some could. You don't even need to make that case. You can say America is safer when we help people. We don't just wage war. I think that's the lesson.
Ilhan Omar's introducing a new type of agency. I can't find the idea on it. I mean, the thing is it's going to have to be something entirely new, and it is going to have to not be, to the extent that we build something new, perverted by imperial issues, which is why, I mean, I don't think it's the main reason. I think, like, Republican power overwhelmingly is why USAID's getting attacked right now. But Like, we can't be doing the soft power, the nakedness, like, it's not going to be trusted anymore. I think, frankly, after Gaza, like, I think part of why this is so easy for these guys to turn their back on is, like Emma mentioned earlier, like, the pretense of all this has been undercut significantly.
Yeah. The whole notion of we're supporting the international world order, and we would do X in Ukraine, but then 180-degree X in Gaza made it much harder to sort of like maintain the loose fiction.
But people are going to starve because of this.
Denver John, Glum Day Monday, that's what's in the running. Dave from upstate, Morbid Monday. Sam, mark my words, anyone sent to Guantanamo will be back as prison laborers. Jim in PDX, F Billionaires, has 11 more days to fund and is still 30% shy of its financial target. In my best Bernie voice, I'm once again asking to even a very brief guest on the one and only Majority Report. We will promote your show, your book again. We got a lot of news out there right now. Cheermaster. Apparently Fox replaced the broadcast audio of Trump getting booed with an applause track during the Super Bowl. Aesop's Fables. I work at a university in grants, so indirect costs are the costs that go towards the general administration of the project, as well as other overheads such as rent, internet, things like that aren't tied directly to one research project, but more to overall governance. It also covers salaries, benefits, stipends, etc.
Yep.
Morpheus. Hospital systems outsource digital conversion of medical records to third-party companies. Who is she kidding?
That's the other thing is we are seeing the culmination of the government like a business thing, and it turns out that's psychopathic and stupid to do.
God's still on the toilet. Some breaking news today. National Endowment for the Arts changes guidelines to restrict funding to Trump-approved propaganda and the Trump to become the chairman of the Kennedy Center. Mike from Texas saw the video of Hakeem Jeffries going around on X where he talks about Democrats being powerless. But the astonishing moment for me was watching him the other day talk to Jon Stewart for an hour with an almost blank stare. Dude looks, sounds, and acts like a robot. If I've ever seen one, sorry guys, I think we're screwed. But these guys are replaced. There's no reason for Schumer and Jeffries to be leading this party. They didn't have a change of guards after the 24 elections. I don't know if they ever will. Who was the change of guards?
It's corrupt interest. I mean, he was groomed, and he has all of the same allegiances that we didn't like about Pelosi, maybe even more so.
Honestly, maybe worse, yeah.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
Now hold it. That's fine.
Here's Kristi Noem. Now, we should say 19 state attorney generals accused the president of failing to faithfully execute the nation's laws when he let the Doji comb through federal computer systems. Federal judge early Saturday morning temporarily restricted access to, by Elon Musk's government efficiency program to the Treasury Department's payment and data systems, saying there was a risk of irreparable harm. Judge Engelmeyer ordered any such official who had been granted access to the system since January 20th to, quote, destroy any and all copies of material downloaded from the Treasury Department's records and systems. You like to bet? Do you want to bet that there's someone who's retained one? But fair enough.
Oh, you mean the Groyper like Nazi posters? You think that they may illegally hold on to certain information that they got from the Treasury, which was the whole point?
I mean, let's be clear. All of these government buildings are now like being guarded by Pinkertons or some, like private security. He also restricted the Trump administration from granting access to those categories of officials. Representative for the defendants, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the Treasury Department must appear on February 14th before Judge Jeanette Vargas. I think they've also said, we're not even going to let the Treasury Secretary get a touch at this because we need to talk about what's going on. So the judiciary thinks it's pretty messed up what's going on here.
Even a Trump judge, right? That was the order on...
That's an Obama appointee. The Trump judges basically said, we're going to put a halt on this whole consumer financial protection thing for a moment. Or I should say the U.S. aid shutdown.
That's what that was.
But here is Kristi Noem still pretending like, and this is their tricky part. They get the honeymoon period is different for the Trump administration. The honeymoon period, the last time it lasted like 3 or 4 years, for them is how long do we get to pretend that we're not in charge? Like there's a secret cabal of, I don't know who this is, Biden appointees or Obama appointees or Clintonites that are buried so deep into the deep, deep state. And not just at like the national security, but like Clinton herself was handpicking EPA scientists and birthing them in petri dishes through a secret program of cloning.
Which is going to turn out the Federalist Society actually has a program like that.
Various hippie dippies. It was sort of like the boys from Brazil. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was an old movie, but they cloned Hitler and put like the seeds of him into like different people around the country. And they waited for one of them to sort of grow up to be like Hitler.
Sounds like the Bene Gesserit.
This is
disappointed none of them turned out like Hitler.
The person who was going to blow the whistle on this, Vince Foster, had to be Vince Fostered by Hillary Clinton. Anyways, here's Kristi Noem, who is on television. She is now the head of the Department of Homeland Security, which is a massive, massive agency with a lot of people with a lot of guns.
Is that in the government?
I remember a time when Republicans were very careful about and worried about the government, particularly unelected people.
We can't trust our government anymore.
Having access to personal data.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You are the government.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is that the American people now are saying that we have had our personal information shared and out there in the public.
Elon Musk has access to it.
Elon Musk is part of the administration that is helping us identify where we can find savings and what we can do, and he has gone through the processes to make sure that he has the authority.
You're totally
the president has granted him.
What
I am
processes?
today by the work that he's doing by identifying waste, fraud, and abuse. And his information that he has is looking at programs, not focusing on personal data and information.
Not focusing on it, but he has access to it.
We'll be continuing to talk to him about what all he has access to.
We're going to have a talk with him.
Have a chat.
What process did he go through?
Are you looking at any of like the contracts that the Treasury sent remittances to for like, let's say, competitors of yours? Or, I mean, you're rooting through all this system. You're not going and finding people that you're pissed about. I mean, it's not like you're a little man baby who had an emotional breakdown when, the Dave Chappelle crowd booed you, and then you went on to buy Twitter for a loss of tens of billions of dollars. You're emotionally stable, right? Like, you never have to worry about you acting out on anything.
He did not go through any process. He did not go through Senate confirmation, and you would think that the senators on the Republican side would be opposed to their power being so aggressively diminished and ignored, but the reality is that only one party seems to commit to process over outcome. And that's the Democratic Party, because the Republicans don't care, because as long as it cuts into our government functioning and really harms people and immiserates them and puts them back into the private sector, which has been the explicit goal of some of this gutting of the administrative state, they're okay with it.
Are you saying that you don't think like some of those people who work for that doji-douchey entity were properly vetted? I mean, no. They went all the way back. They searched their social media almost 14 days back. They went. They didn't go the full month until somebody discovered that somebody was out there basically proposing to normalize Indian hate. But that, to be fair, That was back when that 22-year-old had the youthful indiscretion, because at 21 and 11 months, he was still a baby. But once he hit 22...
It was ancient history. He's
so long ago.
Endorsing eugenics in like the year 2024. That was so long ago. So, yeah, it's immensely silly. And like, oh, that's the other part. Musk is rifling through the CFPB data, trying to shut down that agency. He's getting access to information about his competitors. Like, so that's why you get these quotes to Hakeem Jeffries or in that article about how other people in tech are worried they're not getting in on the fun. For them, that is actually a true reality. I don't give a crap. But like for us, I'm very concerned about what this means, because he can go and see all of this information that he would not have had access to from like the government databases that are going after his competitors in theory, like Meta, for example.
Now, what's interesting about this too is Russell Vought, the head of the OMB, I don't know if he's actually been, has he been confirmed yet?
Yeah,
he was
confirmed on Thursday, I think.
The Democrats spent 30 hours attempting, it's a filibuster, technically.
Thank you, Brian Schatz. I'm saying his last name incorrectly. It's not Schatz. He pronounces it differently, but the senator from Hawaii.
Russell Vought became the OMB director. He was OMB director under Trump 1. He spent the subsequent 4 years basically coming up with a plan called Project 2025. The heart of that plan, there was a lot of stuff put in there. The idea is, if you remember Paul Wolfowitz saying in front of the Senate, weapons of mass destruction was a thing that we could all agree on. But some people wanted to take Iraq because they were mad that their father was almost assassinated by Saddam Hussein. Some people wanted to take Iraq because there were oil fields there. Some people wanted to take Iraq because it was going to be a laboratory for, Milton Friedman, and we were going to create a free market paradise. And some people thought, oh, well, we sold them weapons of mass destruction. They should have some. And then others wanted to basically remake the Middle East so that we could have no countries who would care about the Palestinians. They all agreed ultimately on the story of weapons of mass destruction. We're watching a very similar dynamic here. Project 2025, at its heart, was about destroying the administrative state. But there was all sorts of other sops that were thrown in there. And you can hear Trump roll them out every now and then. We need to protect Christians, so we need to have more, Christian freedoms, which basically means that pharmacists don't have to hand out medications that they think are, morally wrong, like, abortifacients or something like that. So Russell Vought was put in charge of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and he immediately issued an edict saying, shut everything down. I'm honored that President Trump designated me as acting director of the Bureau. He was able to do that because he had now been Senate confirmed. I am committed to implementing the president's policies consistent with the law, wink, wink, and acting as a faithful steward of the Bureau's resources. To that end, I'm directing that, effective immediately, unless expressly approved by the acting director, or required by law, which I would argue all of it is, all employees, contractors, and other personnel of Bureau shall not approve of any issue or proposal or final rules or formal or informal guidance. Suspend the effective dates of all final rules that have been issued or published, but that have not yet become effective. Not commence, take additional investigative activities related to, or settle enforcement actions. Not open any new investigations, not issue any public communications about any of it. No research papers, no compliance bulletins, not approve or execute any material agreements, including related to employee matters or contractors, not make or approve filings or appearances by the Bureau in any litigation, or other than to seek a pause in proceedings. Cease all supervision and examination activity. Excuse me. Cease all stakeholder engagement. So this agency is basically shut down. Russell Vogt wants to do this with just about every agency. He wants to do it with the EPA. They want to do it with the Department of Education. They want to do it with others. Why is he doing it with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? I would suspect it is because there is now a coalition between these Heritage Foundation people who have always wanted to destroy the administrative state because, broadly speaking, it cuts into corporate profits, and these tech bro monarchists, and they have very, very much aligned interests.
Exactly.
It's not even clear that there's any misaligned interests. They come from slightly different places, but they end up in the same location.
Mark Zuckerberg on Rogan last fall.
Andreessen also crapping on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
The Coinbase CEO.
The Coinbase CEO.
Because the CFPB was going after them.
I mean, all of these things. And Elon Musk, who wants to make a bank out of X.
Yep.
And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is part of the regulatory system that says, hey, wait a second. If you're a bank, you need to abide by certain rules.
Do you think it's a conflict of interest that a guy who wants to make Twitter into a bank, because his whole fixation has been payments ever since he was a part of PayPal and wanted to make that into X, do you think that it's a bit of an issue that he was rifling around in the Treasury with all of our financial data? Do other banks have that opportunity, like JP Morgan Chase? I mean, we have a lot of corruption in this country, but that should probably be illegal. I wouldn't want banks having access to that information, let alone a lunatic like Musk.
Well, it depends on whose perspective you're taking. Yeah. Is it a conflict of interest, or is it very consistent with his interest?
Or is it an opportunity?
Exactly.
Bradley, can you put this up just like really quickly, this chart? Because when they're talking about government efficiency, the CFPB is as efficient as it gets. One of the reasons Dodd-Frank created the CFPB, Mike Hansel points out, was that the pre-crisis consumer financial protection was spread across 7 agencies. It was nobody's priority, so it was done poorly and without clarity. Consolidating programs for better outcomes, a model of actual government efficiency. If you could just go to the next slide, you can see how these authorities, for what the CFPB did, were sectioned into this new agency, a new authority. And again, Dodd-Frank didn't do enough, but the CFPB is arguably the most successful thing to come out of it. And Favreau points out below that Elon's bragging about $800 million a year agency that has returned $21 billion to consumers who were screwed by banks. So it's just like funny when Andreessen goes on Rogan and Zuckerberg goes on and says the exact same thing that his buddy and board member at Meta says. And you see the Armstrong of Coinbase saying the CFPB. They never spell out the acronym because the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, there are people across party lines, of course, in this country that say like, hey, yeah, I reached out to them and I was scammed by X and blah, blah, blah. And I got $300 in the mail, or I was able to be made whole, or I don't know, I got some of my money back. That's why they don't want to say it fully, because this is for the people. Yeah. And I wish the Democrats could make that case so badly, because that was the other thing about Hakeem Jeffries, where this is the limits of the popularism thing that they're that Matt Iglesias and other writers on the Democratic
did you say
side.
Matt Iglesias, the guy hosting a talk with Gallego and Mark Andreessen?
No, Gallego is doing this exact thing right now.
Yep.
They act like they have no agency over public opinion, as if the Republicans haven't changed public opinion on issues that matter to them so aggressively over the course of, like, I don't know, my lifetime, how long I've been paying attention to politics. When you just do what's popular, you, by definition, throw minority rights out the window, because they're minority rights for that reason, and you look weak, and you don't orient power and the national conversation in your direction. because they just throw their hands up and just react as opposed to showing action.
I mean, the thing is like what they say is popular and what is popular is really sometimes misaligned. Like people became more supportive of migrant rights over the past year as both parties were running in the opposite direction.
And that's what Senator Schatz, again, I'm sorry, I know his last name. It's a little bit. I think it's Schatz or something to make it sound a little less like Schatz. Whatever. That was the point he was making in that interview with the New Yorker, where Republicans drive conversation and Democrats react to polling. And I think that's a major issue, especially because there are issues with polling. Like, for example, when people say their top issue is the economy, sometimes I don't necessarily think that's reflective, because saying it's the economy sounds smart, but it may be a bunch of other things. It might have been misogyny, it might have been racism, or it might have been the economy. So going through using that, it's the tail wagging the dog as opposed to the other way around.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
Throwing stun. Hostile UAV established overhead.
They not like us. Classic anti-Semitism against a successful Jewish rapper. I'm surprised I haven't heard that yet. I guess the Snoop Dogg Stop Anti-Semitism ads did not take Adam Friedland. Kendrick Lamar, it would have been nice if you apologized to Drake and the Jewish community, but sigh. They not like us. We all know who they is. That's amazing. That's true. Drake did claim it was anti-Semitic in a lawsuit. He did say that. What's really interesting is that, and perhaps a lot of people in my community are going to get mad at me and immediately say that, like, I'm a white boy who doesn't understand. But I think Kendrick Lamar did not go anywhere near as hard as he could have. And he had toned it down tremendously in terms of, like, making political statements. I think he went super balanced, and that it was all right. Like, I think Kendrick Lamar's performance left much to be desired on my end. That's what I think. I think it was good, but I expected amazing. That's what I thought. Regardless of the Super Bowl, I think that juxtaposition of Kendrick Lamar being Kendrick Lamar at the Super Bowl, a person who transcends like a brand as powerful as the Super Bowl, I think was nowhere near as hard. And before you say, oh, you don't understand, like Uncle Sam, I get it. No, I'm saying that was nowhere near what my expectations were. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying there wasn't any politics involved in it, or that I didn't understand the political messages within the performance. No, I'm saying I got it, but it was less than I expected. That's all I'm saying. Here's the breakdown if you want.
You want that performance to have been about Drake. You want to highlight a minor, which was a minor part of the game.
Yeah, I that's not what I'm talking about. I was not. I thought he wouldn't have even talked about Drake, maybe. Like, I thought that would have been a message in and of itself. I thought he was going to go ham on just politics. Like, you got to do, obviously, Not Like Us. It's his biggest song. It's his most popular song from this last album. But, like, my expectation 100% was that he was going to go way harder. Kendrick did what I hope he'd do. He didn't try to do too much. Snuck in some little stuff. Kind of meta commentary on what he was participating in. Whole new song, too, which I assume is coming soon. Drake's shade was quite satisfying. Serena cameo at the end. Kendrick is not that profound. What? He absolutely is. That's the thing. That is the one thing he is. What are you talking about? You could say, like, oh, he doesn't have a lot of hits that are super popular or whatever, right? I mean, you can't say that any longer, but, like, that's the one thing that he does, like, the most, which is why my expectations, I mean, you're talking about dude with a Pulitzer Prize, you know what I mean, for a rap album. But normally he is, and in this situation he also had some subtle nods, but overall I think that my expectation was that he would go way harder, like the divided United States flag, and like there was a lot of subtle political statements, all comprised of black people. That's the other thing. And that, you know, he mentioned 40 acres and a mule. But anyway, let's keep going.
That performance was not about Drake. It was about us. the United States of America in this moment in American history. That's why he started with squabble up, because that's what we got to do. We have to fight back in order to survive. Kendrick Lamar, the embodiment of swift artistry and Gemini genius, and the first solo rapper to headline a Super Bowl, delivered a performance rich with symbolism, some of which may have been missed on first watch. But I promise you, it's going to be discussed by cultural.
You want him to go harder in this climate where black people have to deal with enough as it is? He signaled to his target audience, and that was enough. Black people perfectly understood what he was talking about, respectfully. Okay, we're leaving that kind of sentiment in 2024, okay? We're here. We're in here. We're just, you're having a conversation with me, okay? Please stop. Like, no, we're not doing this, okay? I'm just telling you what my expectation is. Yes, I thought he would go harder. Yes, at a time when black people are under attack. My expectation was that Kendrick Lamar, black man, would go harder. White guy talking about what black people want, try not to laugh. Yeah. I know, dude. I know. It's because I'm racist, dude. Come on, get with the program. I'm racist. I'm a white supremacist, man. Okay? That's it. That's who you've been watching this whole time. Shut up. And now chat calling them woke. Can we please not be a parody of the right? No, it's just so annoying. All right. And before people say, oh, what do you mean? It's Kendrick Lamar. Like, can he do a normal ass halftime show? Yeah, it's Kendrick Lamar. What are you talking about? It's Kendrick Lamar. It's not like, yeah, if it was J. Cole, my expectations would not be that he comes out with like a political message. Or if he did, it would probably be like very liberal #resistance style. But it's fucking Kendrick Lamar. Jesus Christ.
Decades to come as one of the first bold protests of the Trump era. And I'm going to tell you right here, baby, I'm so glad that Donald Trump was there to see the blackest halftime performance of all time. He had Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam, dancers dressed in red, white, and blue prison uniforms, creating patterns that resembled and gave us an American flag, symbolizing both patriotism and critique of all the issues in this country regarding equality in the battle for it. The performers in prison uniforms, really was my favorite part. Just think about it. Where America's society wants to relegate us, wants to put us, prison, wage slavery, mere entertainment. And at a time when black excellence is under attack, facing false equivalencies and the misguided relevance of the anti-DEI movement, Kendrick Lamar's choreography and visuals underscored a bigger point. Well, Lamar's inclusion of Not Like Us, even in a censored form, brought attention to ongoing debates about accountability and power dynamics. It's about holding public figures, whether they be Donald Trump, Drake, or Elon Musk, accountable for their actions. See, the oligarchs who paid $1 million to attend an inauguration, or an oligarch who paid $200 million to influence a national election, those people, they're not like us.
No, man, it's like that's what people expected him to do. The singleness is key. Stop playing loud. Stop being ghetto while he's literally telling you in front of your face with eloquent and subtle messages, man, chef's kiss. What? Yeah, that's what I was saying. My criticism of Kendrick Lamar was that he was too black and too ghetto. No, I just don't think it was that profound. Yeah, he did the whole like black people made this country. That's why they comprised of the flag. And then the flag was divided. It's not even a risk for Kendrick Lamar. Like, you want him to go harder and risk it, but that's not. That was the line Samuel Jackson said, bro. Sometimes I hate watching white men be fragile when us black people want to tell y'all it's not for you to get. I don't care. Okay. At the end of the day, I don't think it's all that serious. I'm just saying, as a fan of Kendrick Lamar, Hassan, you don't know shit about music. It's true. There are a lot of artists out there that engage in political messages that are way above their pay grade, or they try to do political messages and oftentimes they swing and they miss as a consequence of not having a fully flushed out worldview. Kendrick Lamar is not one of these artists. So my expectation there is not for Kendrick to be like, oh, we gotta resist, something along those lines, but instead, at least with the imagery, invoke more anger potentially at the administration, at all, the entirety of the government. from a perspective of like where we're at in this moment in time, where American white supremacy has never really gone away. But at this stage, it's becoming even more overt than it was before. There are, throughout America's experiences with liberalism, there have been times where white supremacy has gotten on the back foot, even though it has very much been a fundamental aspect of American societal development. It's been there. It's never gone away, except now it's being used offensively, more so than in the past couple of decades. That's why I said I think Kendrick Lamar's performance was good, but my expectation was like mind-blowing because it is Kendrick Lamar, you know? That's it. There was a decent amount of Drake stuff in there. There was a decent amount of like blackness in it and the celebration of blackness in it. And I'll just say it like this. I guess my opinion that Kendrick Lamar did not go hard enough is kind of reaffirmed by the reaction to it, because the reaction to it was basically Republicans doing the same thing that they always do, to be like, well, there's a black person there. This is DEI. Whereas like if he had gone way harder, Ben Shapiro would be having a fucking aneurysm. Instead, he basically turned around and said, I can't understand what he's saying. Classic racism. One of the other funniest parts about this, by the way, is that they also didn't understand, like a lot of right-wingers, understandably, did not understand the Uncle Sam reference or the American flag. And they actually thought that it was positive. Like they thought that it was actually America finally, you know, one of the blackest rappers out there at the Super Bowl had the main stage and was like, I'm a patriot. I love the United States of America. Like, obviously that wasn't the point. He wasn't doing that at all. And that point was lost on many Americans because they're very stupid. That's not what I'm saying either. But having said that, I think that there was, I don't know, he could have just like hung a Klansman or something. That's all I'm saying. Here's the FD signifier take from this morning.
Right. He starts out with that unreleased song. I think somebody said his name, Bodies. He says the revolution will be televised, which, you know, and we introduce Samuel Jackson. I think it's a very purpose of the line livery. Sam gets up and says, hey, it's your Uncle Sam. And he says it just like that. And if there's one reach I'll make, I think that's a commentary on Snoop Dogg and Nelly and all of them. Because they're performing with Donald Trump, right?
Yeah. Snoop Dogg, ironically, Snoop Dogg's been getting cooked up and down the timeline. Part of it is because he very famously in 2016, when artists were doing, you know, Trump bits first time around and talking about how they wanted to perform at the inauguration, Snoop Dogg came out and was like, you know, he said a bunch of words that I will not say, including, but not limited to, calling them uncles. Now, Snoop Dogg also famously performed at Trump's inauguration party this time around. So many people brought that back and were like, oh, really? Snoop Dogg, that's how you know, tell us how you really feel. So I think that there's definitely a nod, or a, you know, people are pointing to black artists that have caved to the Trump wave and gotten on the Trump train.
You know, they didn't know that going into it, but that was the performance. And so you have Samuel Jackson as Uncle Sam. Samuel Jackson has a pretty radical background. For those who don't know, like Sam Jack is a
true
was about that life in his youth before he.
Samuel Jackson literally kidnapped a dude. Samuel Jackson is amazing. Samuel Jackson, when he was in college, was insane. I mean, he's awesome. Yes, he was expelled from Morehouse in the 60s for holding Martin Luther King Jr.'s father hostage. They locked board members in a building for 2 days in the protest of the school's curriculum and governance. Included in this group of people who were held hostage was Martin Luther King Jr.'s very own father, Martin Luther King Sr. In 1966, during the height of the Civil Rights Movement, Jackson enrolled at the historically black Morehouse College in Atlanta, the alma mater of Martin Luther King Jr. In 1968, when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, King's body was brought to Atlanta to lie at the state at Spelman College, a historically black women's school adjacent to Morehouse. Samuel Jackson in his youth was, let's just say, YouTube drama tubers would be making a lot of videos about how he's a terrorist. Before you shit yourself, chat, no, they didn't do it directly to kidnap MLK's father. Yeah. Why is that celebrated? I'm uneducated in this regard. Why is that celebrated? Because militancy coming from the Black Panther Party and the Civil Rights Movement, regardless of how much the American education system tries to whitewash it, was on the right side of history. Okay, Jackson attended King's funeral as one of the ushers and then flew to Memphis to join an equal rights protest march that changed the way he thought. I was angry about the assassination, but I wasn't shocked by it. I knew the change was going to take something different. Not sit-ins, not peaceful coexistence. He stated in an interview with Parade about his reactions to King's death. In 1969, as mentioned before, he and a group of activist Morehouse students held the college's board of trustees hostage, demanding that changes be made to the curriculum of the school and stating that they wanted more blacks on the governing board of the institution. Morehouse eventually gave in and agreed to the change, but Jackson was expelled for his actions. That summer, he became connected with people in the Black Power movement, including Stokely Carmichael, H-Rap Brown, and others. I was in that radical faction, Jackson told Parade. We were buying guns, getting ready for armed struggle. All of a sudden, he said proudly, I felt I had a voice. I was somebody. I could make a difference. But then one day, he added quietly, my mom showed up and put me on a plane to LA. She said, do not come back to Atlanta. The FBI had been in her house and told her that if I didn't get out of Atlanta, there was a good possibility I'd be dead within a year. She freaked out. Anyway, the best part of the halftime show is the conservative meltdown over it. I'm just saying that there wasn't even that much conservative meltdown over it, partially because I feel like it was, the messaging was subtle and also did not go as hard as I thought it would. That was the point I was trying to make, at least.
And so you see at the beginning, Kendrick is being a bit more aggressive. And you're like, oh, maybe we will get something that is provocative. Again, I want to be clear. I wasn't looking or desiring anything provocative from Kendrick here. I'm still refining. I'm developing new takes on like what I want from Black art in our political reality right now. But I do know for a fact that I don't want half measures from Black artists anymore. I don't want them to try to have their cake and eat it too and end up doing something that's co-opted and counterinsurgent. I just over that. That's just another thing. Sound mixing was ass. We'll get to that in a second.
Oh yeah, that was the other part of it. It was definitely, the sound mixing was like shockingly bad. He came out blown out. You could, or his voice, you could not hear. The music was way louder.
Whatever it was, I don't think it was meant to be like very explicit or demonstrative in his messaging. I think he just wasn't allowed to do that. And fine. Again, I wouldn't have wanted him to do much more than that because it's on the fucking Super Bowl. It's just, I don't know. To me, it makes more sense to do something not so provocative on that stage because it immediately becomes co-opted. There's a great video. I think Broy Deschanel made it. And I also talked, I don't know, this particular take developed to me all at once. I got the Broy Deschanel video, the problem with Dr. Ball. Looking forward to what Dr. Ball says about this. I'm sure he'll have some classic stuff on it. And somebody else that talked about the fact that there's a thing called justice privilege. Broy Deschanel talked about it with the Barbie movie. And basically, it's a really slick, like, co-op counterintelligence type thing that happens with these giant corporations and giant media companies where they will allow themselves to be critiqued on their platforms, in their media. They will say, yeah, you can like the Barbie movie, oh yeah, call us all the things. Call us all the things. Talk all about all the bad parts of our companies, but in our movie. And so what they do in doing that is they immediately undercut the critique. You know what I'm saying? So having Barbie be criticized heavily within a Barbie movie, it ends up being a half measure. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm happy that Kendrick didn't go much further than he did because I'd have been more annoyed by him doing something more grand on the NFL's dime. It's just, that's me. I'm sure there's a take that's different that I don't get, and I'm looking forward to hearing those. Maybe I'll change my mind, but that was me. So like I think that's the best he could have did. Would I have, as a Kendrick fan and a person suffering in this current political reality right now, I would have loved for something big and overt and dynamic from Kendrick for this Super Bowl performance. I would have loved that. That would have been amazing. But I don't think that would have been the right thing because what we don't need from our artists right now is catharsis. Whatever desire you had for Kendrick to go up there and do something big and grand and meaningful that makes you feel like you're part of the resistance just by watching him.
A different black person take expecting activism from that, like that from Kendrick, when he also gave us Mike Brown would have not been killed killed if we respected ourselves and didn't loot is goofy, and people expecting him to be a voice for black people is corny. Malcolm X said something about this, like, why do our activists have to be musicians and athletes? I think it's just because it's still Kendrick Lamar. It's not like any kind of, like, it's not just like a random dude. It's not like a random popular mainstream celebrity. That's it. Having said that, I still enjoyed the performance, which, you know, many people are taking issue with me saying that he didn't go hard enough. But if he went any further, he would have had the entire Republican propaganda machine after him today, Law. I don't know. I think, like, overall, there's a feeling of capitulation in the air from any kind of resistance against the Trump administration, the acceleration towards fascism. And I feel like this like more softened approach. I don't know why we can't let artists be artists. We don't have this level of expectation from anyone, let alone our elected officials, only because it's Kendrick Lamar. My expectation would not be the same from any other artist. But once again, I will repeat this position. I liked it. I just thought that it didn't go as hard. That's it. That's all I'm saying. But there is no expectation that celebrities, or at least for me, there's no expectation that celebrities are going to save us. That's it.
You know, I didn't want a big grand thing from him. I wanted exactly what we got. What we got was a cool, somewhat provocative, a couple little nuggets, halftime show with just enough meat where people feel like there was something there, and maybe he was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Again, I'll let other people analyze and come up with their takes, and then we move on. Yeah, there you go. I think I hyped it up to be bigger after I heard the president would be there and knowing who Kendrick is. I should have known better. Yeah, you can't, you cannot, and you should not. Like anybody that feels, if you felt vexed after Kendrick's performance because it didn't give you the catharsis, take that energy to the streets this weekend. Go to a meeting, you know, hit your Google, see what I guarantee you there's a mutual aid fund in your city or state you could be donating to. You could be doing so many things to get you that same catharsis that are actually more meaningful and useful than having a big celebrity say the thing for you on TV. You know, Kendrick is not your savior. We're 3-4 years deep into that slogan at this point.
I'm betting so many of these shadows are not black and just white knighting. I agree with your take and thought the same while watching. People watching in their fanboy goggles, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, the Drake stuff was awesome. It was good. It was funny. It was perfectly timed, and it pissed off everybody that weirdly took offense to it. It's one of those strange moments where you have people taking ownership over the criticisms for no particular reason. I don't know why. A lot of people are Drake fans that took ownership over it. You had the obvious DEI halftime show from Jack Posobiec because, you know, black people, classic stupid guy take. You had more classic stupid guy racist takes. This is not music. This is some loser mumbling. There's nothing artistic or redeeming about this. NFL, stop behaving like Americans like this. Saying Kendrick Lamar is mumble rapping is insane. There's perhaps no better indication of your own personal racist position, I think. That's like old school, 2000 era racism. Oh, he's mumbling. I don't understand what he's saying. Okay. Americans are so funny when they get mad at black culture, like racist Americans getting mad at black culture or rap music in general, when without black people and without black culture, Americans' cultural export is not even halved. It's literally almost entirely, it's reduced to nothing. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, what do you have? A ridiculous position in general. Benny Johnson chirping again. Hey, NFL, Trump won. We no longer let talentless, mumbling, pagan, satanic cults do halftime shows and pretend like people like it. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, saying Kendrick Lamar is a paganist, Satan worshiper. Kendrick Lamar is a Democrat. His producers are Democrats. Everyone who works for him is a Democrat. Why is there no diversity or inclusion or equity in this halftime show? Or does that work only one way? Just basically trying to fire off as many takes as possible in an effort to get some of that delicious algorithmic boost on Twitter. Once again, the Surfs actually comes out with a good take here as well. Crazy idea. Play a halftime show where a band plays music. Bold decision to hire a halftime performer. Like Matt Walsh wants polka or something. You know what I mean? I don't understand. Why can't someone just come out there and play the accordion? I'm Matt Walsh. That would be something that we really enjoy. Bizarre decision by the NFL to have some guy come out and lethargically mumble a bunch of songs that 90% of the NFL audience has never heard.
Yeah, those dudes think that anyone interprets these, tweets as racist. Dog shit.
Whole decision to hire a halftime performer who doesn't actually perform. And the Surfs is right. The right has complete and total control, and they're still annoyed and upset. They just love to complain. They love complaining. There is nothing the right likes more than complaining. Okay? This music is not my style. Some people are saying, yes, how? Does anyone actually like this crap? It's just like, what do you want? You are dominating. You got everything you wanted. Trump is president. He's popular. He's gutting the federal agencies. He's doing everything you wanted. Egg prices are through the roof due to the avian flu, with seemingly no control over this problem. It's now patriotic to pay more for goods. It's officially patriotic to pay more for goods. And y'all are still complaining. It doesn't make any sense. When will the complaints go away? They're actually mirroring and proving the personification of America through Uncle Sam in the performance. Yeah. Conservatives know they will never win the cultural war. They desperately want liberals to think they're cool, and it will never happen. The problem with that is that Andrew Breitbart once famously said, politics is downstream of culture, right? It's almost like the reverse of a Gramscian analysis, if I understand it correctly. The issue there is that conservatives do believe it. They don't want to shape culture in a way where it suits their political goals, because their political goals have nothing to do with popular mobilization anyway. So while they dominate every aspect of the government, they still basically want to complain, because the one aspect that they truly want is broad recognition and popularity. They want to be loved. They don't care about dominating culture in an effort to create popular mobilization for their causes, like, you know, white supremacy, the abolition of DEI, whatever that means, or, I don't know, abolishing the Department of Education. They simply want to be liked. They want to be liked. They want to be popular for their opinions. That's it. And it's very stupid because, yeah, on the one hand, like, sure, liberalism is the domineering attitude in most aspects of media, and yet liberals have nothing. They have nothing. They ain't got no motion right now. They're losing everywhere. And conservatives are still mad. They can't even celebrate their victories because their victories to them mean nothing. They don't care about actually advancing a right-wing agenda, because at the end of the day, I think that right-wing agenda is inherently harmful to the broad swaths of the working class anyway. Okay, we went from, and then you have the other side of the conservative spectrum, by the way, people who don't have any media literacy whatsoever, who saw the American flag and thought, oh, this is good. We went from kneeling during the national anthem to a halftime show showcasing USA flag colors. We're so bad. A few years ago, they were endorsing burning the USA flag, and now Samuel Jackson is Uncle Sam at the Super Bowl. Hollywood is desperately trying to get America to pay attention to them again. Yeah, definitely. This was actually a positive figure. Kendrick Lamar put Samuel Jackson in an Uncle Sam costume, which was, I believe, was it Bodie or Marnie? Regardless, beautiful. The outfits were amazing. That's a totally separate thing. Like, Kendrick Lamar's pants are so fire. But yeah, getting back to the conservatives failing to understand any kind of political messaging, even if it's not very, even if it's like subtle or light. We're so back. Finally, the NFL joins in celebrating U.S. flag instead of disrespecting us during halftime. Finally, a non-woke satanic halftime show. Kendrick Lamar showing off the American flag. I love this. So there was certainly a very real political moment, but it did not capture, it was not captured by the cameras. I think it was deliberately hidden from the cameras on the national stage. However, if you looked hard enough, you could find it. And I'm not talking about this. A black man performing at the Super Bowl halftime show. No BLM messaging. No rainbow flags flying. His whole dance team is repping red, white, and blue. I'm pleasantly surprised so far. That's not what I was talking about, of course. What I'm talking about is the brave dancer that was a part of Kendrick. Right here, you can see if you squint hard enough on the top left corner, busted out a Free Sudan and Free Gaza flag that he had on him. He was actually a part of the dance team. He was waving it loud and proud. Still showcasing it until he gets, of course, tackled inevitably. So initially, when they were covering this, people were a little confused. Some thought it was a part of the show. Some thought it was a random person who snuck into the group. But no, this was actually a cast member who did a very brave thing. Cast member who displayed the Palestinian flag with the word Gaza in protest during Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show will not face charges, New Orleans police said Monday. Part of that was also, initially, the police were basically looking for any charges to hit him with. And they simply could not find a charge to hit him with until this article came out. Most articles that were covering it were saying that the police were basically looking for something that they could charge him with, you know, I guess disrupting the NFL halftime Super Bowl show is not illegal, but they were basically looking for something. But considering that he was one of the dancers, it gave him some semblance of coverage. You couldn't hit him with like trespassing or anything like that, because he was literally one of the dancers. The banner combined the black stripes of the flags honored by the Sudanese and Palestinian peoples, and also the word Sudan on it. The cast member, one of dozens of dancers clad in identical black sweats, held it high while standing on the roof of the car that was the centerpiece of the hip-hop artist's performance, and then jumped off the stage and ran across the field before being tackled by several men in suits. The cast member had hidden the flag, and no one was involved, and the production was aware of the individual's intent, the NFL said Sunday. Adding to the person has earned a lifetime ban from league stadiums and events. Rock Nation, the entertainment company which produced the halftime show, said in a statement provided by the NFL that the flag display was not planned. President Donald Trump was in the stadium for the game, but it wasn't clear if he saw the protest. Trump's comments asserting that his government is committed to buying and owning Gaza have been widely rejected by the Palestinian people, upending discussions about the enclave's future. So I guess I wasn't the only one who thought Kendrick wasn't being political enough. It seems like there was at least one dancer in Kendrick's crew that also thought the same and thought that he would take matters into his own hands. So this leads me to believe that if there were no charges for him, that he was falsely tackled, it seems. Yes, I did see this, by the way. People saying Kendrick Lamar should have used the halftime performance to make a statement like he didn't just have the same dancers who made up the American flag collapse into 100